In the room, 52 Jokers Wild. Was it in low budget you made your cut your teeth? It turns out the statistics said it was actually 50-50. So you can actually get an opportunity in, let's say, we call micro-production under the 5 million mark now, just for the sake of it, and go, they don't need you to be approving something anymore because it might blow the budget. Yeah. They want, if you've shown your talent on the way up, then they will take a risk with you potentially, as long as you package it end to end and says, this is our market, this is our audience, this is our subject matter. The great thing is, I've seen a bunch of women come up now from watching the Facebook, watching just the various film Facebook groups, and you can see them. There's the Mo O'Connells, the Roisin Carneys. They're there. They've cut their teeth. They've got their shorts. They won a couple of awards. But the jump now from the short budget, I'm using a language accountancy, going, look, the 2 grand, 10 grand, 50 grand, something. You're jumping from a 50 grand to a 500,000, and based on the Netflix and Amazon block, you a 7-cent return of view, you need to be delivering a 10 million viewer audience to get back your 1 million. And that's something just to break even.
That's difficult in Ireland, particularly for some of the more sort of the less commercial kind of subject films. But I think it's multifaceted. So I think what you were saying, Garvin, that the big companies, the big producers tend to go with what they know. So they know that these guys are going to be successful. They know they're producing a script that will make money, that will be good box office. So they have to start looking wider, because those women are out there. Those women writers who've got the screenplay in the drawer, those women directors and producers are there. Some of them are in television, some are in animation, some are making short films, some are making low budget features. They have to go out there. They have to talk to Screen Island, to women in film and television, women in Hollywood, all of those groups, and say, tell us where these women are. We want to find them and we want to give them opportunities.
If you join the dots, it's just indie production for the moment in Ireland. Yeah. And that group is very, very focused with a bunch of players about to break out with because their talent is there. They just need the audience. If that makes sense.
And the audience is there as well. Especially now with the streamers.
It's a connector too.
Especially now with the streamers coming in. I mean, RT is always very difficult to break into, and it's a whole beast.
I wonder if the streamers are really an opportunity that people believe, because I do think that they've opened up an avenue, but I wonder if they're closing it in, because we talked about Amazon, which I put something in about 10, 12 years ago, and I know CJ had said he'd done the same thing, and it seemed to open up opportunities that we were all hoping to avail of, and then very, very quickly it just went the other way. Yes. And we can see now, one of the things that I've noticed in the stories that I've been hearing from everybody this last week, which is actually reassuring in one sense, but it's also not in another, is that what you guys are doing this year, we did 20 years ago, exactly the same thing. So in 20 years ago, a group of us in Belfast were writing short scripts. We actually wrote 14 scripts altogether. We produced around about 12 of those. Actually, we produced 14 scripts. There are other ones that were going on in the background. We became known as the Premier Rejects because Northern Ireland Screen would reject us all the time in their Premier scheme. And we were saying, you have to get your movie into this scheme and get rejected. Then we'll go and make it, and kind of go, nah. And that's what we did. And the daft thing is that I have one of my little films is in their archive, which they didn't support or have anything to do with. And they were kind of reflecting on what we did. And we ended up setting up all these film festivals. Now, people have managed to go on and do stuff, but it is a lot of heart. that energy that you guys are now showing was being shown at that particular point in time. The key is how to keep it going for the next 20 years.
Yeah, I find that a lot. I've been screenwriting for 3 years now, and I find that a lot. I find that exactly. So people have one or two, successes, and then the energy just kind of goes.
Yeah.
And so, and 90% of all directors who make one big feature never make a second one. And that's really, really sad. And it's really, really sad.
She's pointing at you, George, there now. That's not the right kind of thing at all.
And it is true. It's true, because I spent 14 years on my second feater film at the moment.
Exactly. And so it is quite sad, especially in the indie community, and especially in the kind of smaller realm that we all operate in. It is quite disheartening to see that so many writers, so many directors, so many producers do one big thing, and that eats up their entire energy, and then that's done. But the great advantage you have as a writer is, especially if you don't write and direct, which is what I don't direct, is that you don't have to limit yourself to just the one project. You can have as many irons in the fire as you can possibly kind of fit in there.
My wife has invested in a toolbox. I don't have one. I've got masking tape. I'm Homer Simpson. If masking tape does not solve the problem, you're talking to the wrong person. Because I couldn't even do it if I wanted it because I don't have a screwdriver and I don't have the tools. It's a job to some. It's pleasure to others. It's work. I don't want that work. Laurie, get back in the game. No,
you got me.
You cannot wait.
You got me on the gender bias thing because I was thinking about that. And you know what?
There you go. We got the hook.
Yes, we do. And I think the thing is, whether it's space aviation or it's engineering as a subject or it's even being a mechanic, I think for so long, let's face it, guys, you've had the glass ceiling and you've kind of sat on it for so long. And now we're just trying to say, you know what? We no longer just want to look at the glass ceiling. We want to smash the glass ceiling and actually have ownership of this. Because let's face it, let's be honest, when it comes to the smaller, intricate parts, and unfortunately for you, I'm one of those women whose father said to me, before you own a car, you need to know what a car can do. So he opened up the front of the car, the hood of the car, and had me look at it. Because he said, there's no point taking the car to the mechanic when you don't know where the water is, you don't know where the oil is, and you don't know where the basic things are. You don't even know what a head gasket is, let alone what all of those things.
That's a terrible word. That's a curse word. You hear the word head gasket, and you just know it's ka-ching, ka-ching. The word I'm going to use is head gasket. And that means $2,000 plus grand, $5,000, keep going. The figure I'm going to come up with is worth more than the car.
Absolutely agree with that. And then here's the part that I don't like. So you show up to the mechanics and you're a woman, right? And you show up and you say, well, the light is going off. It's on the dashboard, like you so rightfully said. And what happens? All I want you to do is tell me about the light. But what happens is the mechanic, most men, especially when you're a woman, just keep the price going up. So we go from just the light that you need to figure out, give me a diagnostic, to my wheel alignment is off, to now you've got something wrong with your drive shaft. Next is let's have a look at your transmission and gearbox. I just showed up for the light.
You've just now mentioned if you don't know the knowledge, that's when they can keep putting the price up. And it's the same with solicitors. We were always taught you need to know your game. You need to know what it is legally that's going on so that when the solicitor comes to talk to you, you actually probably know more than they do. And they're just a cog in the wheel as well. They will go and talk about all sorts of things and blind you with their type of science. But if you have knowledge about what it is that you're going to talk about, then they're defenseless as well. And I've known this with other people who have tried to give me massive, great big bills for something. And I went, hang on a second. I've researched the job. I know it doesn't cost anywhere near that. You've just doubled the price and you want me to pay for something that I'm not prepared to pay for. So it's about these perceptions of things that are going on. I also want to kind of return to something because I know I've gone to speak to people with my wife. The person's actually called my wife and asked her to go along to talk, and I've gone with her. And quite often it's been a man. So I'm nearly 6 foot, my wife's 5 foot, and the fellow will be somewhere in the middle. He starts talking to me. And I've actually said a few times, my wife's the one that called you. You need to be talking to her, not me, just because I'm standing there. I'm not the customer. My wife is, and she's intelligent enough to know exactly what you're talking about. Give her the respect she deserves because she's the one that's the client. And if she doesn't like what you're saying, she's the one that's going to walk away and not pay you.
We've just gone off our little rant and we're saying, if you were doing the reset with women, would that include they're more honest than these men? The job is motor mechanic. The job is car salesperson. The job is, but does the same associations also go with the job functionality? Will they then be going, I walk in and there's a lovely girl mechanic there behind, my car is broken, and she starts giving me your widget and your didgeridoo are gone on for a little walk now. Oh, that's like a ka-ching, ka-ching. So they can functionally have the skill set. They can run the showroom. They can run the mechanic outlet. But are they going to then take on the rest of the guys of, you wear the suit of the job that's there, or is it going to be a nicer flowers and cappuccinos in the corner, welcome you in and go, here's the price list, and it's all much more, we won't screw you?
Well, look, to be honest, I think right now when we look at what's happened, especially with COVID, right? We went from all the liberty in the world to restrictions that were absolutely out of everyone's control. And now we're in that mad frenzy of survival. And this is financial survival. So like George so rightfully said, you have to have that decision that you make whenever you're doing business. Is it that you love what you do and you're charging a fair price? Because let's be honest, there's some things we've all paid for. And then 6 weeks down the line, you see the same thing and it costs nothing close to what you paid for. I mean, classic example is game consoles. Anybody who has kids who have game consoles, if you purchase them, let's say Black Friday, by the time you get to Boxing Day, by the time you get to New Year's Day and post New Year's Day, you could kick yourself for how much you paid before it was Christmas for purchasing all those things. But could you tell a 10-year-old, I'm sorry, Daddy was waiting for the price to be just right for me to buy it for you and they expect you to open it on Christmas morning? No, of course not. So there's all these things associated with what am I going to charge? What am I going to get for it? But I think the thing for me that gets me is, do you do what you do because you actually love it, enjoy it? And when you price things, you're pricing them not out of this necessity of survival, but make your margins. Absolutely understand that. Make your profits. Totally agree with that. But when it's to the extreme, I have a problem with that. Because at the end of the day, how do you sleep at night? And what sort of conscience do you have?
Yep.
Well, you don't have one anymore. I don't get that.
Do you have a map of where you hope to get to over the next 5, 10 years?
You're nearly talking business planning 101 there, George. Your mission statement, your 5-year plan. What's the 5-year plan in 2 months?
Or does that matter? Or does that matter? That's the
or
other
you're
thing.
happy to be living in the now. Yeah.
Oh, God, no, lads, there's definitely a 5-year plan. I think I know people are like, oh, 5-year plans, whatever. But no, there's always a 5-year plan. So 2018, we set one. And what we knew that we really wanted to do and what we wanted to spend our money on was the best equipment, the best cameras, the best sound gear, and the best people to help us kind of along our journey. So exactly, freelancers, hiring, like Liberty Smith, that producer that I've already mentioned. So much of my skill set I have learned just through shadowing her. And it's by hiring these people. So we really, what we said for the next 5 years that we wanted to do was we wanted to become self-sufficient. We wanted to grow Wild Rice Films to a place where we were able to really keep up with the big boys who had been in this industry a long time. Mm-hmm. And we want to be able to really work hard to I suppose invest in ourselves and invest in our equipment. That is it.
Now, there's a strange thing. The accountant in me is coming back out and going, people used to come to me with their 5-year plan. We're going, okay, that's great. What's the 5th year? Can we do that in 6 months? If you could accelerate that and do it in the next 12 months, would you? Can you sell the story of the plan of Wild Rice Films to an investor to see you as the next go-to agency under your model of how you do it?
It's such a difficult one. I think the only... do I want to bring Wild Rice Films to a place where I have employees? And it's kind of right now the answer is no. But I know in the next couple of years, me and Rich want to move back home. We're currently in Bristol. I want to go back. I'm from Donegal. I'm from Bundoran. But I want to live in Sligo. I'm not too far from the beach. There's
some good fish and chip shops there. I know the fish and chip shops there are pretty good.
Right, we're going to work on this. We're going to accelerate that plan.
But I know,
the work doesn't change. That's just the work.
Work doesn't change. Most certainly doesn't change. But I'm a young woman. There will be a time when I obviously want to start a family, when me and Rich want to start a family and stuff like that. And then is when I would want to make sure that we're self-sufficient enough that we can replace myself with somebody that we trust. Yeah. And I know how hard I work. We might need 2 people.
That's the problem. You're doing 7 jobs. We keep on underestimating the budget. Yeah. No one is doing those hours. Yeah.
No one will ever do the same hours as a small business owner.
Let me reassure you though that because I've actually worked through having 2 young sons who are now in their one's in their 30s, and we've got grandchildren now. But things do adapt when your needs require. so you don't have to give up things that you thought you might have to give up. You know, that's very important.
Time is now the most valuable thing. Always was the most valuable thing. We're just more aware of it now, going, we're not going to give you a second, third, and fourth chances. We haven't got time. This is it. Take us as we are. We can make friends and influence people. We can go on journeys together. You're reaching out. You know, as I said, one of the little IMs you wrote back to me was, you know, what have I got to offer? And that's actually the gas thing is every single person we were talking to said something similar. Yeah. Immediately, the imposter syndrome stepped in, and we're going, no, you're the expert. You're the MA in film. You've got 3 shorts. You're winning awards. You're out there. You're doing it. I'm talking about it. You're doing it. So you're the mentor to me. You're actually the reason I'm stepping out of the room. George has been he's so far out of the room for so many years. You know, he doesn't need to step out of it. I have to get him to step back into it.
Well, actually, there's some interesting things there, because as someone that mainly has been an editor, although I've been a lecturer as well in media production and creative medias, what I found is that the pandemic actually got me talking to more people in this environment. You know, because I was able to talk to and get to meet more people.
If he can get a word in edgeways from me.
That is true. The one thing I have noticed is networking online on Zoom is much better, because usually you're all in a room. You can't hear anything after 5 minutes because everybody's talking and like, what?
Yes.
So actually networking and if you get into this kind of virtual room.
Zoom etiquette, as they say.
Zoom etiquette, yes.
I have to say, you get more of someone's attention, which I suppose is worth the effort of reaching out. And you know, they say it's been a good time to write to you know, to send your script, ask if people want to read, because they have nothing else to do. But you know,
I don't think they're the same. A script reader has the same amount of work they had before to read. What's happening is now they've 600 scripts coming into them where they are only one. They haven't changed, and they've the one ask. What every pitch in my language is that script is an investment. If it doesn't treat itself as an investment, or have the partners in the organization to understand it's an investment looking for money to be made to pay for jobs, then it has less chance of success.
I mean, you know, it's one of those things where actually, as a writer, I want to be in a team and I want to collaborate, because that's
there we have it. You're stepping out of the silo. You're bringing the A game. I'm the script. I'm the writer. I'm the script editor. This is where I want to be. My skills to heavily be in those IMDb credits.
Mostly, I need you know, good feedback and people who are honest about whether this, you know, what works and doesn't work in a story, because that's, you know, most of the aha moments come from someone else either not liking what you said and wrote, or coming at it from a completely different angle.
Oh, that's interesting. You're saying, am I hearing that right? You don't want, yes, men or women or anywhere in between. You want no in the sense of, but critique in the sense of critical. It's not, because if everyone says yes, you learn nothing.
I've learned writing through editing programs together, and that's a collaborative process with a director or a producer or some other people, where you're constantly testing what you're doing. And the first thing you have to get used to as an editor is not to take personal criticism from what's being said, because it's not about you. It's about the shape of the film that you have in front of you. It's the process. And I think a lot of writers would actually enjoy that process as well.
And that's one of the things I learned on a small scale, producing and co-producing the 2 shorts. God, I have learned that what I write on the page better be able to be put on screen pretty easily, because
No, I watched your short. I was swiping left and right all over the place there last night. You go, no, very, very excellent. It got my attention. I liked the humor. I see how it won the little prize and it got you. It was your hello and got you in, I believe, in the sense of it was your stepping stone onto the path to then decide to go a little bit deeper and further.
I had a great time. It got me hooked. And also because I come from marketing, that's quite an advertisement. It's an advertising piece, really. It's like a product.
Because I usually make comedies, but that is probably one of, that's a social realist drama, I suppose.
Yeah.
So the feature has developed on from that, and we have our first draft, and we were talking to producers and things like that. And so it's just about finding the right production house for it. And you apply for more Screen Ireland funding, basically, with that production house behind you, and then eventually production funding, and you shoot the thing then. So that's the plan, but we have to get the right producer, the right production company.
And how many versions of the script would you go through? Would you have a process that you'd go through to limit the number of times you go through writing a script, or would you keep working away at it?
No, I mean, it's kind of intuitive with me. So I'm not, it's this thing, I'm really bad at telling people what to do, because I kind of just follow my own intuition on stuff. And if I'm happy with something, I'll shoot it. Like,
hold on a second. You said you're a director, and you're very bad at telling people what to do now. That's
yeah, no, I am bad, but I can't, like, you know, when I'm writing something, you know, like, it's kind of unusual when an idea comes to you, you know, and it's kind of special, and you kind of nourish it. And then you have a bit of courage, and you try to bring it into the world and stuff. But you be very careful about who you show it to and stuff. Say for instance, with Proclaim, that came out, that was the first draft, basically. And I had done loads of research, and so a lot of the things that Connolly says and all the printers say, they did say those things. Like, I researched it that much, and that's what they said. And they said that is what Connolly said. So I made sure that I got a lot of, you know, old Dublin speak right. But when I showed it to, like, some DOPs who didn't end up getting the job, like, they would tell me, oh, you know, people don't talk like that. You have to take that out. And I was like, okay. And didn't take it.
Yeah.
But I didn't work with them, you know. I just thought they're not the right person for this, because this is, I don't know, I had a strong feeling about it.
Are you precious, or are you able to let go?
Well, I mean, it would depend on what they're asking me to let go. So that's the thing. Like, I mean, if it was something that I just, you know, that you know, I wouldn't go with them then, you know, and I'd back away and I'd find someone else who's right for it. But I mean, if there was something that I could let go, then I would. I mean, I'm not necessarily precious, but I would fight for something that I thought was right, you know.
We've heard a lot of people that said that they don't know how to say no. But I think there are times where you just say, no, I'm not having that. I'm not going in that direction.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard. It's a pull and tug all the time, you know, like going forward or going back, saying yes, saying no. And it's really, I mean, that's why life is hard, you know, because you don't know what is the, you know, are you right or are they right? It's really hard to know sometimes. But really follow your joy, I would say. You know, it's your project, and you're allowed to make mistakes as well, even if they are right, you know. It doesn't matter, like, it's still yours. And if you want to go off and make the film, and it, you know, there might be imperfections, and there's imperfections with every film in the end.
Oh, that's where the businessman here jumps back in and goes, I keep on saying to George, it's not yours anymore. What it is to take the language ease in the sense of the journey from short to feature is a journey from, you know, let's say no budget to what do you think that feature is? Is it a 500,000 something, 1 million, or 2 million? What size is that feature in your mind based on the first pass of your understanding of it without doing a line budget? It's no longer anyone's. Actually, it's 100% owned by the investor. It is not owned by the scriptwriter or the cameraman or anyone else, because everyone got their payday. How do you feel about that sort of ideology about that journey? Or
like, I definitely understand it, but I still think at the end of the day, like, you know, it's a bet.
Traditionally, it's a genre that Americans are very keen on, but it's really challenging to find financing for sci-fi films, horror films, even when they are elevated, as in smart genre films. It's still quite difficult because traditionally funding bodies just don't give money to genre films. So right there, by establishing ourselves and our brand as genre filmmakers, I guess that's disruptive, for lack of a better word. It's what is really interesting is that actually now genre is kind of trendy. It's back in fashion in Europe. Yeah. So actually a lot of people are trying to do genre. But hopefully people can recognize the filmmakers who have been doing it for a long time and are really passionate about the genre. I've been trying to do really good, to write and produce really great genre films. And I think that, you know, eventually our disruption will pay off.
No, what I've heard, Stephanie, is, you see, myself and George end up in these conversations at different times and going, in the bigger productions that already have their streaming in place, have their sales and distribution channels, the weird thing with a Bloom model is you could spend 100,000 and get an 800% return, but you might lose 7 out of 8 times. And if the first 7 are your losses, you're never going to get invested in again, because the investor wants, we keep on saying it's Shark Tank, it's Dragon's Den. They're going, they're the making of you. It's their money. Everyone else is a bill, a wage. They don't care. It's how do I get my money? But they want to give you the money to explore your passion. And if the passion is not art, but more the genre with a return, then that's all they want to hear. And that's what we suddenly realize. Depending on who the customer is or the language we're talking to, the end customer never gets to see the film unless the customer or investor sees how he's going to make money.
I think it's a tricky question, because I know filmmakers who actually are financially solid enough to invest in their films, but the question is, it's not actually, it's almost as challenging for them, because they also want to recoup their own money, which is fair enough. But the problem is there's no guarantee you recoup your money unless you make a brilliant film, and you cannot. Yeah. It's an art form. You cannot guarantee brilliance or success. So if you're trying to really striving to make a great film, it could be that you don't quite achieve your goal. And if you don't achieve your goal, if your film is not good enough, then the sales agents won't be a tier 1 sales agent. If it's not a tier 1 sales agent, then the prices of your movie won't be enough for you to recoup. And it's a hard truth. And it's yeah.
Well, yeah. There's a film, I think, out recently, a horror movie called Silence or something. And the whole thing is about everybody trying to be as quiet as possible and trying to work out ways to communicate to one another. And there is silence. There's not even music, I think. And the tension builds up because you're kind of going, what the hell is going to happen next?
You just imagine someone in the cinema eating popcorn. You're going, you'd be fucking...
Yeah, if you heard them crunch, you kind of go,
on the way.
Shut up.
So now we're back to going, it's to try and get that production value with minimum budget.
That's the creativity within it, and that's what filmmakers are there to do. You know what I mean? We can have discussions on finance. I know they have to work together at some level, but if you start crowding the mind of your creatives, you're not going to get the best product. You know what I mean? You have to, that's why there are those different areas, to me anyway, is because you have to give people the space to do really well at what they're good at and allow them to do that. And people will find ways around it. I mean, when you read a book, I certainly visualize every moment as I read. I don't read with like a blank mind and just see words. I see what's trying to be put.
Now, have you gone to many a cinema afterwards after reading the book and going, that didn't bloody happen? I'm very disappointed with that. And you're going, and I can see where they cut with your mind's eye, you're going, well, we know why that wasn't in there. Yeah. No budget. Yeah.
But I've gone to the pictures, I've gone to the cinema and watched a movie, and I've come out and I've got my impressions of what it was. And I listened to a couple of people behind me talking about the movie, and I went, that's not the film I've just watched. What was the film you just watched? And they have a totally different concept of what the last hour and a half was they went through. And I kind of go, whoa, that's fascinating just to sort of explore those sort of ideas. And I think that, I mean, you were talking about a short time ago trying to get back to work, and we've discussed this before, the kind of imposter syndrome. And over the last few years, I've gone into training to become a counselor. And it's like people watching, and it's fascinating just listening to these people. And one of the things you're in a kind of triad situation where someone's observing another person that's counseling, and the other person is the person being counseled. And I started to experiment with the idea of being a character from one of my movies, which happened to be a girl called Aoife, and in another one, an 83-year-old man.
I'm not even going to comment on this one.
But the thing was, but I didn't have to do anything.
You're giving me ammunition here, George.
Stories.
Be aware what you're doing.
No, absolutely. But I think that the exploring the way that people think and the way that people interpret, and playing around with those roles in a very, very simple sort of scenario with 3 people observing one another is so fascinating, because without machines and stuff around you to capture that, you're creating stories, or you're seeing stories evolve that can help look at, create tension and all kinds of stuff that was going on. And as an observer, which is what the audience is, you're suddenly seeing this interaction which becomes so fascinating between 2 human beings. And that only needs 2 cameras.
Yeah. And and it feels incredibly tense. And there is this kind of move, and I think it's because they're like, oh, the kids are just watching YouTube and it's all quick, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And I totally get it. Mine do. Like, they play games, they're doing this, that, and the other. But there's still a lot of kids who are literally watching someone else play a video game for 6 hours.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
No, that's what we've touched on this before.
Yeah.
I want if they're on it, I want them to be a creator, not a user.
But still,
because if you're just consuming someone else being the...
But they're still going back and watching a lot of films that I would have watched as a child because the story is there, they're interesting characters, and they can relax and watch them. The reason they watch those YouTube, it's a form of meditation, I think, to some extent.
Well, something that was fascinating, because I did what you're saying. I actually watched my 32-year-old son playing a tank game. No, it was they landed these soldiers into an island and they had to accomplish something. Yeah. But he was in Canada. And I was sitting there with him. He was talking to his mates in Ireland and Texas and all sorts. Yeah. And they were all playing. They were actually like soldiers going on a mission, having a discussion about what it was like back home, and then suddenly having to deal with a crisis that occurred as the characters. And then they went back to being, and you went, there's a drama in that, which is really quite fascinating to watch.
To George, if you think of the Minecraft YouTubers, what they do is beyond the game now. No, they've created an entire story. They've actually scripted it. They're going on a journey. It's an adventure. They're going to find X and fight Y. And this is the narration, and the narration is nearly comedy. And then they start realizing, I'm running out of lines on myself here. Yeah. So there's 4 and 5 of them now as a group having and that's what my kids were watching when they were a little bit younger. There's more chance of a comical, improv script around the framework of structure of adventure, which they started putting into it. So these are nearly the filmmakers of tomorrow, but these are actually making more than the filmmakers of today, sitting at home, as I say, on a regular basis in their underpants, basically narrating Minecraft. And I'm going, I'm trying to give business advice. I'm going, no, I need to be talking to them. It's the other way around.
Well, you look
the teacher, the pupils become the teacher.
A lot of those people have 30 or 40 employees who play and record.
Now they have, exactly.
And then they narrate over them. So they're not actually necessarily playing the game. You know what I mean? So they write the script.
But there are lots of creatives now. There's the game engines of Unity and Unreal now are being used by filmmakers to create virtual worlds that look almost. I mean, Mandalorian, the Star Wars movie, was using them to project, and they got the right reflections. But the kids are playing around with these tools and coming up with amazing worlds that they wouldn't normally have been able to do.
The thing is, George, the kids don't realize they've already done the training. Yeah, they're using drop-down menus. They're built. I mean, I started using Celtex the other day or something, and what it is menu-driven. You start going, what's in every box? What does it do? The kids are actually building worlds, even at the most basic level, with the tools available, being web tools. And the strange thing is, they're actually already geared up at 14 years of age to go work in animation, do character rigging. They're building their characters, they're putting on their armor, they're picking from different structures, they're manipulating them. I go, actually, the amount of learning that's now implied in these, what seemed like games, half the time my son is actually getting ready for the game. It's the pre-structure, the pre-arming, the pre-planning, and therefore it is actually, I'm very excited because most of the tools of some of the jobs in this industry going forward is, as you said, cinema or film is now going to be more a real engine than possibly out in the wilds.
I mean, explain linguistic programming.
George, I'm not letting you go there. Yeah. No, sorry. This is not an LLP program.
No. I think this is important, just in a few moments, to explain that kind of process. Because
go on.
You were talking.
That's going to be on every single show out there. I'm an LLP practitioner.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is what it is.
I think as part of the, because you've talked about the things that you were doing in the past there, sort of, Garvin. So I think it is important just to connect to that kind of sense, just very briefly, because then we'll move on to aliens in a short time, I'm sure, and we'll get that part going. Yeah. But briefly, just to give us a kind of concept there.
Yeah.
You've got 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5,
no,
4.
Stop it. She'll hypnotize you and make you think that you're a little fairy in a second or two. And you'll flutter away somewhere off into the background.
I am. Yes, there's no thinking involved there. That's a given. Go on, sorry.
And we're talking about the 19th century concept of a fairy, nothing else, okay? Just in case the audience picks up wrong and thinks we're talking about something else. Sorry.
The difference between what I do and what a lot of NLP practitioners say they do, as Garvin just said, or another NLP practitioner. I'm not an NLP practitioner. First of all,
she's a kick-ass black belt mastermind.
Exactly.
That's it.
I teach my own system, the mastermind method, which is, and as we had a bit of a chat before, is the concept of everything that I've learned so far, which includes, if we want to label it NLP, because remember, NLP was just a label that Richard Bandler and John Grinder, the creators of it, gave it. Now, they didn't actually create it. It was already there. So a lot of NLP practitioners, because obviously it's different levels, so a lot of people say they're NLP practitioners, but what they've done is they've just done one course. And they've done, a few days training, and they even think, as we're saying, a little knowledge can be dangerous.
You're doing that course, actually, yep.
Yeah, they think, well, do my course, obviously.
Yeah, as a free one, thank you very much. We'll take that coupon. Discount,
I have a free one starting next week. Yeah, I have a free course starting next week. But like people will do a free course, or they'll do even a 1 week long course, and they think that they're experts in a subject. Yeah. And we all know that it doesn't work that way. My favorite saying is, it's oh so right to be wrong. Because every time that you prove yourself wrong, you've, those biases, those blind spots, you've expanded your map. So the way I see NLP is very simply, it's a universal method. They are universal principles that have always been there. And it is how to influence somebody in the most beneficial way, either yourself or somebody else in the most effective way. Now, a lot of NLP practitioners, what they'll do is, and hypnotists, by the way, they'll learn scripts. They will learn techniques. And they, in my humble opinion, they haven't got a clue what they're doing, because all they're doing is, you'd say,
regurgitating.
They're regurgitating. Yeah. They've learned.
I've got a spot. The sun is shining. Sorry about this, but the sun is starting to. And George won't give out to me. It's starting.
Oh, I will. Garvin, goodness gracious, that green screen. If it doesn't work,
I'm going to get up. You leave you two to it and close the window.
I can't see this.
Okay.
It gives a few moments.
What they will do is they will learn a script or a technique, and they think they understand it, but all they've been doing is they've been given the fish. They haven't been taught how to fish. So I like to do it the opposite way around. I like to teach people, show people the principles, and then they can make up their own scripts. They can use their own methods once they understand the principles, because in my opinion, again, all the modalities have the same principles. It's just we've labeled them for marketing purporses. So
I think that
is NLP is hypnosis, etc., etc.
Well, I know that. I've studied education. I've taught people how to learn how to do stuff, and it's not the teaching. You don't want to be teaching. If you're teaching, it's wrong. It's all about the learning. It's how people learn, and you become sort of person centered, and your focus. And I was talking to someone the other day. I was driving up to the pictures.
Stop for a second and go. You're the educationist.
I'm the educationist. Yeah.
I don't know how many subjects, right? He's got a master's in this, that, the other. He keeps on telling me. That's the great thing about it. So I know he's read a lot of books, and he's actually mastered them all, and he got the sticker to say he is qualified.
No.
No, that's fine. I'm the opposite. I'm the one you're talking about. I went and read the introduction chapter to about 25 books. I read the summary at the end, and I actually memorized a couple of acronyms, and I chuck them all in together, and I go, right, I know enough. That's me. Enough to bamboozle, but if you go deep, I'm in trouble. I can go wide. But you then said about centered. You're saying I don't know what the word was.
Person-centered. We were talking about person-centered,
right?
Where we're actually focusing on the individual.
I'm
the problem is that as we go further and further into this conversation, that is definitely so the focus is.
There you go. So I'm a self-centered synopsis reader, practice preacher. And go wide and not deep. George is actually what you need to be talking to.
Yeah, well, but the interesting thing is that Garvin is learning, because what's interesting
not
about
to shut up long enough to let you have a word, but I mean, soon enough.
No. But the thing that what I'm finding is fascinating is over the last year or so, and a lot of these processes take time, and they also need people to slow down. And not to be constantly trying to race to get somewhere, because it is a case of gradually building, taking small steps, small chunks, and really trying to get to know what was going on. I got into a little bit of trouble with Garvin yesterday because I kept going sort of, you're an unconscious incompetent. Threw my hand at the screen. Didn't mean to be doing that.
Every word was uncompetent, subconscious, uncompetent. You know,
so I rephrased it.
Oh, there you go. I don't even think it's incompetent. So
it is. There is an incompetence there, but basically what it was.
I'm definitely both of them put together, but I know that much. But
no.
Now, George, I'm going to swing it back because I want to go superhero here because Danielle is my superhero. She, as I said, she's kick-ass.
He's idolizing you. That's something else that we need.
That other hypno guys, kick-ass hypno. So we're going, that's two superpowers you got so far. You probably have a bunch of others in your handbag. But I mean, it's the rest of us. I got tall. I've got tall cornered. That's about all I've got cornered at the moment in terms of my superpower. But you've got two superpowers. Are you going to use them on the next Kickstarter, Dragon's Den, to raise some funds for your business? That's what I want to know.
For my new cafe, yes, there's an idea there.
Yeah.
I have an idea for a cafe. Yeah, absolutely. So you never know. Maybe I'll go to Dragon's Den, and hypnotize them.
One of the questions I was going to ask there was that it's the International Producers Network, Film Producers Network. Is there any themes that are coming through that those within the community are actually saying that their needs are? Are they starting to highlight any of those kind of ideas or problems or issues? What are the main themes that they're coming up with?
I mean, most of the main one is that they're all looking for work. We did mention last week that a few of them will ask sort of questions, but a lot of the time the answer is within themselves. It could be something simple, whereas you would just say to them, pick out 100 companies and send your email with your CV. It's, for some reasons, not everybody thinks of these things, offhand. So, with the group, there's lots of different content in there nowadays, and it's grown obviously since lockdown. During lockdown, there was people posting just every single day because they were at home, they couldn't work, so it's sort of like. Like most industries and, graphics or whatever for companies, it peaked at a certain point. And then obviously as, lockdowns started sort of calming down a bit and people are back out and about and could film again, then obviously it sort of quietened down. Unfortunately, I had to throw myself back into full-time work as well. So, it is self-running, like I say. But it would be nice to be able to pinpoint and offer opportunities for people in there.
Again, it's back to it's the pain. The pain is, Donna, you're already doing 8 jobs. You can't.
Yeah.
You want to give more, but to give, you got to take from somewhere else. And it's so therefore the strange thing is now, and I'm like, if it paid, would you swap A for B? The problem what we've noticed in other groups is they didn't know how to monetize it at a height that they can actually staff it properly and admin it, because what it is that's saying in a couple of words, we need a recruitment firm because there's a bunch here offering jobs and a bunch here that want employment, but we don't know where we are because we have to find the funnels. We could get lost in here. We post something that's gone in 5 seconds because the way the algorithm works, because you're actually on Facebook or you're on LinkedIn. I post something that's gone in 30 seconds. If it's not pinned, if I wasn't on with the job and I didn't see it, I'm gone. So therefore, this is the problem with, there's some people out there that are posting, like, I guarantee you, 3% of that 100% are posting. 80% are passive and they're just reading. So or something like that's going on. So you'll find those that are posting are either doing they're advertising, or there's others, or maybe they're trying to advertise there's a job, but or maybe they're just trying to promote themselves. But in their other groups give about, they nearly call it spam, because they're going, if you're successfully generating content, we could drown the group in our content. It's content but if we put it in, no one else gets a chance because we can just keep on putting it in. And that's the problem. You're going, what the group is about, if you strip it back in functionality, it's people want a community. They want to know people in similar situations themselves. They want jobs, and they want other people to help them find it. If they find one themselves and they have one, they'd like to give back and then say, well, there's another job going here where I am. I believe in the group. The
interesting thing about what we're talking about there, because there is a kind of anomaly there, because I know, Garvin, you've talked about this in the last couple of weeks, and we've discussed this, that if we go out now to do a job, we're sucked into another system that basically eats up our time and doesn't give us back the value that we feel that we have to put in. Now, a group of producers, you'd kind of think, if they're jobbing producers, then they're not what we associate with producers. Producers are someone that initiate ideas, develop them, and then try to find the funding to get those things going. So it will then generate work and generate other prospects for them. Whereas there are other producers that are like me, or that I was as an editor, where I just went from one edit job to another, and they're just taking on those jobs just to pay the bills. But in the end, they've never actually directed their life along a certain path. And what I loved about the conversation we had with you, Donald, last week was you seem to be the kind of person that actually directs where you're going, sees the connections, and starts, and you're creating your own life journey, which I think is the most powerful thing. And that's something that I kind of feel that we need to encourage other people to do, is don't rely on somebody else to lift you up. Find a way to create your own life story. And I think we've come up with this idea of the story of you. And that is suddenly becoming a very powerful thing. You mentioned earlier on that the answers that most people had were actually within them. They just weren't putting them out. And I think that's what we've got to try and nurture in folk, is look within. Yeah. Pull the answer out of yourself. If you need someone to guide you and talk you through, you've got a network of people that could share their experiences with you, and start to create that bubble, that energy, where you suddenly realize that you guys can actually collectively create the work that you need to do that will generate an income.
Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and click on the bell for notifications.